Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Kyle Hammonds, and welcome to the Republic Forum. The devastating attacks of September 11th have shocked and horrified the nation and the world. The United States have gone into war mode and are even proposing police-state measures on the people in answer to the tragedy. Should we expect to see more terrifying acts? Who benefits from such atrocities? Is this the final turning point towards the New World Order? How will these events affect the financial and banking sectors in America and the rest of the world? What are the implications of the newly created Cabinet Department of Homeland Security and the implications of foreign troops patrolling our skies and our land? Ladies and gentlemen, this is a very important program tonight and entitled September 11th, 2001, the Day America Died. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome journalist extraordinaire, Karen Lee Bixman.
Well, rehearsals are always good. Too bad we can't have one great big rehearsal for life and then do it all over again. Is there any way that I can hold this speaker, this microphone in my hand? I'd feel a little more comfortable.
Yes. No.
If we could arrange that somehow?
Well, I'm afraid what's going to happen is the volume's going to change up and down. And
So I'm going to have to do this all night long, huh?
push the whole thing to Facebook.
Okay, I guess we'll work that out. Okay. Well, thank you very much for coming to hear me this evening. Before I give my main talk tonight, I know that there are many, many new faces here again. Some of you have heard this story so much you're getting tired of it, I'm sure. But the Lord has told me that as long as there are people who haven't heard my little tale, that I need to keep telling it because I have a lot to be thankful for. Many of you followed me, were very familiar with my investigative reporter, as I now do again, and probably wondered what happened to me 4 years ago. I was publishing, had my own talk show on the radio, doing a lot of TV, traveling all over the country. When I went into the hospital, I had a herniated disc, and I went in for surgery to have that disc removed. While in the operating room, I contracted a rare staph infection that got into my bloodstream, and the doctors were not able to get rid of it. I had that surgical wound reopened 4 more times. I was in the hospital for 3 months, 104 fever, kidneys went into failure, liver went into failure, and I was literally dying. The doctors came in and told my family, you know, she is not going to make it. A very dear and wonderful friend, Dr. Stanley Monteith, who is now a retired orthopedic surgeon, one of my friends called Dr. Stan and said, you know, you must come, Karen Lee is dying. He drove all the way down from Santa Cruz and took over my case, ordered an immediate blood transfusion because at that point I was ready to go into heart failure. With his help, I started to get better. After being in the hospital for 3 months, and they realized that they were going to be able to get rid of the infection and I would live, they sent me to rehabilitation because if anybody of you, you know, when you don't use your muscles, they go into atrophy. So at that point, I only had the use of my arms. When I could get out of bed by myself and into my wheelchair, they let me go home. From that point on, it has taken 3 years, almost 3 years, to get back to where I consider to be normal. During that time, as many of you know, I've told this story now quite often. Just about anything that could have happened during that time did. My car was stolen while I was in the emergency room and in the hospital. When I was in the hospital, of course, I couldn't pay my rent. My landlord was this wonderful guy, so he came while I was dying there in the hospital and served me with an eviction notice. So 2 months after I got out of the hospital, I was evicted from my place. because I had previously hurt my back and didn't have insurance at the time. They give you this pre-existing thing. My little hospital stay cost me $300,000. So I literally almost lost everything. When I was evicted from my townhouse, friends from the Midwest called and said, you know, if you want to come back, we've got a spare room. You can stay in our room, and we'll put all your things in the garage. So that's exactly what I did. This year, when I came back to California, people found out I was back. They started calling, and they said, well, you know, you've got to come speak to our group, or you've got to do radio. And I thought, well, yeah, I can do this, but I need something to talk about. I guess I better do an investigation. Well, I'll just do one issue, just one. Well, I did that one issue, and then people said, well, you've got to start publishing again. And I really prayed about this because I said, you know, I told my friends I will never do this again. The price is way too high that I have to pay. I know the work, I know the exhaustion, I know what's involved in doing this. But God told me, you know, I'm opening these doors for you and you have to walk through. So that's what I have been doing. And I must tell you, at one point after I got out of rehab, and I was sitting there in my wheelchair, and they give you all these I had these little things, my son called it a grabber, you know, where it's like a little tool where you can't move and it picks up things for you. And I was just so completely helpless and just mentally, emotionally, and physically gone. And I remember sitting in that wheelchair. In fact, this was 4 years ago today, this October, that I was in the hospital dying. And I remember there crying like an idiot and saying, you know, God, my life is over. I can't walk, I can't write, I can't work, I'm losing my home. I can't even take care of myself. How can I ever be any good to anybody else again? And I really thought that my life was through. Little did I know that God would bring me back to the point that I am today. So I am a walking, talking miracle, and it is this walking, talking miracle that addresses you this evening, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight, boy, we've had some heavy-duty stuff happen. I want to focus on the events of what has happened, what is going to happen in this country that I now call New America. Because you see, the country that I called America, the country that I loved, well, forever in my memory, September 11th, 2001 is going to be known as the day America died. We're now operating in a new country, ladies and gentlemen. And this is some heavy-duty information that I'm going to give you tonight. I wish this could be fun and games, but it's not. You know, for many years, I came up here and I've spoken to people in this auditorium, and I've published, and I've done all these things. And it's very sad because now, all this investigation that I have done over the years, I see that now it's coming to pass. The events on the 11th, I believe, actually launched us into the one world order. On the 20th of September, President Bush announced the formation of a new cabinet-level agency, the Homeland Security Agency, Office of Homeland Security. And he appointed Pennsylvania Governor Tom Ridge to head this new cabinet position. Well, people might think that this idea just came out of the blue, and where did George W. get this idea, and now suddenly they're going to try to put this together. No, unfortunately, this new cabinet position has been in the works for a long time. In 1999, there was a commission established, and it was called the U.S. Commission of National Security in the 21st Century. And this commission was chaired by Gary Hart, Warren Rudman, and 11 other commissioners sat on this board. They came up with 3 reports, and they published their reports in 3 phases. The third and final phase of this report, although it was done in 1999, it was embargoed and just released of January 1, 2001. And the title of this Phase 3 report is New World Coming, American Strategy in the 21st Century. I want to show you the cover of this because, and hopefully Dennis will get this on camera. This is a very fierce, menacing-looking eagle with a globe and a road. This is the road to the one world order, ladies and gentlemen. This is the cover of this Phase 3 149-page report. In this report, it again calls for the formation of the Office of Homeland Security and states that this should be a cabinet position. What this is going to be, people think Homeland Security and they see newsreels in their heads of World War II, and there's the air raid warden and he's looking for the Japanese planes in the sky and let's make sure we cover the blackout curtain. I wish it was going to be that simple. It's not. This is a new agency is going to be the Americanized version of the KGB. We have over 50 different agencies that are now going to come under this Office of Homeland Security. I won't mention all of them, but realize first of all that FEMA is the core of this new agency. FEMA and the Office of Homeland Security will work hand in hand. Agencies such as the CIA, the Department of Defense, the EPA, just to name a few, are now going to be changed and put under the Office of Homeland Security. Now you would think if we watch the regular news and we hear what our president is saying, that this new office then should be about preventing terrorist attacks in the country. It should be all about defense and taking care of the country and preventing these things from happening. Well, in this report, it states that in this new era, we do not equate national security with defense. Let me read to you some of the things now that are considered part of national security. Along with the normal defense, diplomacy, and intelligence, now economics, counterterrorism, combating organized crime, protecting the environment, fighting disease, and promoting international human rights will all come under the guise of national security. Now, any of you have followed my work over the years, you know that I have been a big fighter against all these environmental programs that have come down the tubes, the land takings that we've seen, the control of the water for one up in Klamath Falls. Realize now that if you are upset with these environmental land takings, if you try to fight the government now or stand up against these environmental programs, you will now be considered a terrorist because you will be going up against national security. The whole phrase of terrorist has changed under this new program. The old definition was you had to either plan or commit a terrorist violent act against people. Well, when Governor Ridge took over this new position, in his opening statement, he sort of gave us an idea of what the new version of terrorism is going to be. He says, to those Americans who would lash out at your fellow citizens simply because they worship differently, or dress differently, or look differently than you, there is one word for such behavior: terrorism. Well, I guess tonight, ladies and gentlemen, if I sit here and tell you that your only hope to get through this situation is by putting your hope and faith and trust in the rock of Jesus Christ, I'm a terrorist. This brings a whole new meaning to the word terrorism. Have you noticed in just a short month how politically correct the world has become? You don't dare say anything about the president. You don't dare say anything about the government. If you object over the fact that our civil liberties are being trashed, that our rights are going to be taken away, I guess you're going to be considered a terrorist. One of the most telling things in this report, it says matters that need to be considered, and I will quote directly from this report, the identification of societal forces that inhibit the attainment of the United States national security strategy and recommendations to overcome those inhibitors. Now, who would those inhibitors be? Might they be Christians, constitutionalists, gun owners? This is laying out the plan very, very boldly. And again, I wish we could say this, I wish I could do this like a report and say, well, you know, maybe somewhere down the line in the future, 5, 10 years. No, this is now. That's why I say, ladies and gentlemen, our country is gone. And what I'm going to tell you tonight, we need to move into a whole different phase as Christian constitutionalists, how we're going to get through what's going to be happening to us and what we need to do. This new office will take the National Guard along with FEMA and make them our new federal police officers. Throw the Constitution right out the window. And unfortunately, these gentlemen that put this report together, they either have never read the Constitution, or maybe they have a different copy. But let me again quote from the report. We urge in particular that the National Guard be given Homeland Security as a primary mission, as the U.S. Constitution itself ordains. Well, you know, I can read the Constitution, and there's a lot of reference there to a well-armed militia, but do you guys maybe have a different copy than I do? I don't see anything about a National Guard in my Constitution, but evidently this commission says it's so it should be right. Well, for those people who've never read the Constitution, yeah, I guess they'll go along with the game plan because they have no clue what it says. This new agency will reorganize the executive branch of government as well as the legislative branch of government. As far as the executive branch goes, and again, I'm just going to do the highlights tonight because there's way, way too much to cover. Right now, the appointment process, when the president wants to appoint a cabinet member, there is a very strict, long background security check done by the FBI, and different security procedures are done before that person will be placed in that position. Through this new Office of Homeland Security, that FBI background check will now be eliminated. So the president will have the full authority to appoint anyone that he wants to, and they will no longer have to go through any sort of a security check. The legislative branch, too, will be altered. It calls for taking the 5 leading senators, getting together in a caucus and in a forum, and these 5 senators and 5 congressmen will dictate and redo policy of the legislative branch. It also takes the Coast Guard, the Border Patrol, and Customs Department, and puts it under this new agency as well. This is so broad and so this actually is a police state, what we're seeing formed in here, in this new organization. It also goes into the education program. Right now, if any of you have been privy to the Goals 2000 or the out-based education reports, you know that the public school system has been pretty well saturated with the the government point of view. What they're doing, they're dumbing down our children. They're teaching them exactly what they want to teach them, revisionist history and so forth. Well, part of this report states that we do not have enough students that are studying in the fields of math or science or engineering. And we need to do something about that because, you know, when we're fighting the war against terrorism, we need to have a good defense, and we need to have people that are very capable in those areas. So the federal government is going to come in, and they are going to take control in the schools, the public schools, of the courses of math, science, and engineering. This will be through kindergarten through the 12th grade level. We are seeing the implementation of out-based education because now students in these programs will be receiving a mastery of certificate that they have qualified in these areas. We see a lot of UN talk throughout this report. It says for the public good constantly throughout this. It talks about including human rights as part of the national security. People need to know when you hear the word international human rights, that's just a buzzword for the UN. There are also many of the ideas that are already in this report I have seen in the conference reports from the Millennium Summit and from various UN documents that I have read. So the tone of the UN is interwoven throughout this new report. Again, just sweeping proposals like we have never seen in our country before. Normally, we would think of the National Security Council has dealt with international relations. Now that is going to include economic and domestic law enforcement activities as well. And when I say this is going to be a police state, that's exactly what I mean. You're going to have your federal police now. It will just go down the chain. You'll have FEMA, and if people have, maybe most people are privy to this. If not, I wrote a 3-part series called Concentration Camps in America back a few years ago, where I actually set out to disprove that any of these existed, because I had heard so much rumor about this, and I thought, you know, I read all this stuff, but nobody has ever presented me with any facts. So I started digging, and unfortunately I found more facts to prove that these were true. I have outlined all the executive orders that will take place under FEMA, how the country is already divided in 10 regions. Well, all of this that I have written about years ago is now going to take place through this new Office of Homeland Security. So again, this puts the country in a police state, literally. The President, again, should propose to Congress that the Secretary of the Treasury be made the statutory member of the National Security Council. They are also going to reorganize the State Department, creating 5 undersecretaries to oversee the regions of Africa, Asia, Europe, Inter-America, and Near East, South Asia. And he will be responsible to the Undersecretary for Global Affairs. Realize those 5 categories that I just gave you are the same categories that the United Nations uses when it talks about the different regions of the world. Now, if you think that our government has high regard for you and I as individuals, I want to read this to you. In the portion, as I just talked about, the federalizing of the education, I should also say that individual private companies, so forth, like Boeing, we used to have Rockwell, McDonnell Douglas, I think they've all been taken over by Boeing. The defense industry will end up being federalized as well. And so those will no longer be private industry. But when it talks about the education. I will read this to you. Rationalizing the way that public research and development money is spent must include better accounting of both human and physical capital. There is no one place in the U.S. government where such, catch the word now, inventory stewardship is performed. Moreover, with such a basic inventory of the nation's science and technology, quote, property. If you read through this report, we are now property. We are no longer individuals. Again, this is filled with UN verbiage. It talks about regional government being more important now. And we know that the country already being tied up into 10 FEMA regions. Everything is in place. The events of the 11th were just the precursor. I hope you all know that. I've had a few critics of late. When I've done this on radio, people tell me, you know, you have to give people hope. You can't go out there and tell people that the country's gone. Yes, I can. The only hope that you're going to have, ladies and gentlemen, is the relationship with the Lord. If you don't have that, you're not going to be able to get through this. We are in a whole new phase. And the pedal has been switched over, and now it's on fast forward. I did a report on the 1st of September before the terrorist attacks. I titled it Market Plunge 2001. And it was all about the coming stock market crash, which is going to occur. The events of the 11th have also put that on fast forward as well. I documented all the reasons why this would happen. The fact that we're experiencing the biggest credit bubble in the history of our country. People have charged their credit cards to the max. They've refinanced their homes. They've sucked out the equity and gone out and spent that money. And finally, comes time to pay the bills, and you can't do it anymore. I also predicted that we would see a rally, and that's what we're seeing in the market right now. I call it a sucker's rally. One last little rally there for people to throw their money back in and think that everything's going to be fine. There are many reasons why this market is falling. As I stated, we have the plunge protection team, which is made up of the president, the head of the stock exchange, and the major houses in New York City, who actually control the market. Ladies and gentlemen, there will come a point where they can't control that market anymore because they want it to fall. Realize the big boys have taken their money out of the market a long time ago. I thought it was atrocious that the following Monday when the stock market opened, you had all these talking heads on TV that were urging people to be patriotic and invest in the stock market. And I heard horrible stories. This one woman took her life savings of $50,000 and invested it in the market because she wanted to be a patriotic American. Those people ought to be hung. They really should be hung. The big boys, they're gone. They're long gone. And I found it very, very interesting that 2 days before the terrorist attack in London, now suddenly they're trying to figure out who did this, huge blocks of stock were shorted in the airline industry, the tourist industry, the hotels, and the insurance fields. Someone made billions of dollars. And one report tried to say, oh, well, you know, bin Laden did that. Give me a break. This wasn't bin Laden. This is our international banking cartel. that is running this whole show, our shadow government, and things are just playing out as they want it to play out. We've heard a lot lately on the news right away. Did you notice how every congressman and senator came out and said, well, you know, people are going to have to start giving up their rights. Mary Bono started talking about the national ID card. We have John Ashcroft ready to cram this stuff down everyone's throat. Well, let me tell you what they're talking about. Of course, we're going to have a national ID card. Wiretapping will be an open season. They can tap anybody's phone. They will go into the internet. They will check your email. They will check to see what different sites that you go on. And eventually, ladies and gentlemen, that internet will be shut down. I don't know when, but it will eventually, because they will say for some reason or another that either these are terrorist sites or this goes against the national security policy of the United States, so we can no longer have those sites on the internet. That's one of our last hopes, I see. When they take down the internet, our exchange of free information, I think, is really gone. Here in Southern California, you know, it's been very politically correct in the past month to get rid of talk show radio hosts. George Putnam, an icon of LA, I believe it was on KRLA, it was KIEV for 27 years, was recently fired. Kevin Shannon lost his job on KRBT. He's now on another station, fortunately. I have a few friends in the, a reporter friend of mine that works at the Orange County Register was recently fired because they told him that he wasn't, well, I can't tell you exactly what they told him, but let's just say that he was anti-government. He wasn't supporting the president enough. I even believe that Kyle Hammonds has been told that he's walking a very fine line when it comes to his radio show in criticism of the president. So all of us who do this type of thing, me included, we know our days are numbered. We don't know how long we have to do this. Could be a couple months, could be a couple years, really don't know. But I guess what this is all about, ladies and gentlemen, is putting your feet in the sand, drawing a line and say, this is it. I'm not going to retreat. I'm not going to move. Now come and get me. But I'm going to keep talking till I can't talk anymore. One thing that, over the years, I've always said that one of the worst things that has happened in the patriot community is that they eat their young. We have never really been able to come together cohesively as a group because we are free-minded, independent people. We're not these, you know, ruddy liberals that will jump after every trout and fish and, you know, save the environment. We're free-minded, independent thinking people. However, unfortunately, if someone thinks just a little bit different than you do, we have a tendency to just do a total character assassination of that person and just say, well, you know, he's all washed up. He doesn't know what he's talking about. This is a time for the Christian patriot community to come together. I receive many phone calls every day in my office. One call that I'm thinking of this week, a man called and said, you know what? He said, I'm all alone. He said, I have lost all my friends. Over the years, I have been trying to tell them about this. They think I'm crazy. They don't want to have anything to do with me anymore. He said, I've lost my children. He said, my kids don't even want to be around me anymore. And he said, Karen Lee, do you even think that it's worth for us, now that we know the country's gone, is it even worth it for us to keep talking about this? And I said, "You bet it is." We are commanded, I am a Christian, and in my Bible it says in Ezekiel 38 that we are to be watchmen on the wall. We are to tell people what is coming, and if we don't, we have the blood of that person on our hands. Again, I don't want to have bloody hands. I'm going to ask all of you tonight to do something that I don't know if it's ever been done here before tonight. But just for a quick moment, I want you to look to the person to your right and to your left. And then I want you to look at the person that's sitting behind you. Would you do that for me for a minute? You don't have to get up. Just look to the next to you, to the right and the left. Before you leave here this evening, please don't do it now. Before you leave here this evening, I would like you to connect with 2 other people in this room that you do not know. I would like you to get their phone numbers. And what I would like you to do is say, you know what, I don't know you, but I need to get to know you. In the coming days, months, weeks, and years ahead, we're all going to need to have someone that we can call and talk to. Because there are going to be times that we're going to be depressed, we're going to be scared, afraid, we're going to go through a variety of emotion. Now, I'm not trying to say that we're going to be there financially or any kind of a fraudulent thing. What you need to be is a friend and a fellow patriot for that person. And if somebody is sitting here tonight, if I aptly describe that person that's alone, that comes to these meetings, that doesn't have any family or friends, you need to reach out to each other and just be there and listen and say to that person, you know what? If you just need somebody to talk to, I'm going to be here for you. I'd also like you to make another commitment that with these 2 people that you connect, go one step further and say, you know what? I've got your name written down right here, and I'm going to pray for you every single day. And we don't need to have this turn into a gossip situation. You don't even need to know what is going on in that person's life. But if you can just say, God, you know this person's needs, and I'm praying for him today, and I'm lifting him up to you. God, please meet their needs. We can't keep running scattered to the wind like we have been. And ladies and gentlemen, we are out of time. If I'm busting somebody's bubble tonight and you're still sitting here saying, oh, there's hope, we can turn this around. There isn't. Again, the only hope we're going to have is in the Lord. I firmly believe that for years, God has had his hand of protection on this country. And on the 11th, that hand of protection came off, and now judgment is going to come. He's calling the people of America to repentance, but are they listening? We're having a one world order prayer service at Yankee Stadium. Here's Buddha, here's Allah, here's Muhammad, and the American Indians are puffing some sort of smoke. And we're all together singing, God bless America. That is an abomination to the Lord. He doesn't honor that. 2 days after the attack, the legislature in Sacramento passed a bill stating that now homosexual marriages will be allowed in California. We spit in the face of God. And yet we say we're a Christian nation. I have talked to some people since the attack, and they tell me, well, God won't let anything happen to us Christians here. We're a Christian nation. We're not going to go through anything. My question to these people is, when you have Christians that are being murdered every day for their faith in the Sudan, in China, in Egypt, all over the world. Where do the Christians in America get the audacity to say, we'll never be martyred for our faith? If you can show me where it says that Christians get some special dispensation from the Pope in the Bible, please show me. We are going into rough times, and this is why I say we need to come together. No more illusions. And another thing, another bubble I'm going to bust here tonight. I have a great deal of patience for certain things, but I have lost my tolerance for many things that I see going on in the so-called Christian community. It makes me want to throw up. I am tired of people that are so-called Christians that are not bothered by the fact that they can go out, they can gossip, they can spread rumors, and they can do a character assassination on another person, and yet they say, hey, I'm a Christian. I'm going to heaven. God's called me. I'm a wonderful person. Oh yeah? I have no patience for that anymore. I'm tired of people who gossip about other people, who are constantly looking at the log in their brother's eye when the big mote is in their own. People need to start getting their own spiritual houses in order. Don't worry about what your brother down the street is doing. If you're concerned about that, give him over to prayer and let God change it. But where did you get the right to go up and tell that person that they're not living their life right? Or if they're not reading the right book? Or if they're not interpreting this Bible passage the same way as you are? We have a lot of pushy Christians, so-called Christians. Ladies and gentlemen, the time for all this is over. I have no tolerance for this anymore. I have no patience for this anymore. And what I want to say is, people, please wake up. We don't have any more time to sit on the fence. Now, you're all going to have to make a decision sooner or later. I don't know how much time left. I don't know how much time we have left. But I can tell you that the events are on fast forward. Right now, the American people are still fairly complacent, even after the events of the 11th. But once we have a stock market crash, and that market goes tumbling down, and it all goes down the economic food chain. When people lose their money in the market, or they get laid off their job, they put their house up for sale, they stop spending, you can see how an economic food chain works. Things are going to get very, very bad here in the country, economically. Then when you have the next terrorist event, whatever that may be, at that point in time, the people of America are going to be so spooked. They're going to say, please, give us the ID card. Do anything. Keep the National Guard in the airports, please, whatever, border checks, we don't care. We just want to be safe. And when that happens, that's the go light for the government to come in and implement everything in this plan that I have talked about tonight. But the American people aren't there just quite yet, because they're not afraid enough yet. We are going to see all the federalization of the airports. We're going to see a one world order airline. This is all part of the plan. Everything is falling into place. And you can tell I haven't sugar-coated anything tonight, and I don't intend to, because I want you all to see the reality of how serious this is. The Homeland Defense Agency now has their own administration. They have their own, they have their own little program now, their own little administration board where you can actually go and become a police officer and for the Homeland Defense Agency, and you'll get your Master of Certificate and you'll qualify for one of these police officers. Again, this is serious stuff. You know, over 200 years ago, we had some founding fathers that were Christian men, wise, intelligent men, who laid it all out on the line. You know, as many as you have heard so often, they pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor for this country. I want you to read what happened to some of these courageous men who signed the Declaration of Independence, knowing full well that they could be captured or murdered for taking a stand. Carter Braxton of Virginia, who was a wealthy planter and trader, saw his ships swept from the sea by the British Navy. He sold his home and properties to pay his debts and died in rags. Thomas McKean was so hounded by the British that he was forced to move his family almost constantly. He served in the Congress without pay, and his family was kept in hiding. His possessions were taken from him, and poverty was his reward. Vandals, or soldiers, or both, looted the properties of Ellery, Clymer, Hall, Walton, Gwent, Hayward, Rutledge, and Middleton. At the Battle of Yorktown, Thomas Nelson Jr. noted that the British General Cornwallis had taken over the Nelson home for his headquarters. The owner quietly urged General George Washington to open fire, which was done. The home was destroyed, and Nelson died bankrupt. Frank Lewis had his home and properties destroyed. The enemy jailed his wife, and she died within a few months. John Hart was driven from his wife's bedside as she was dying. Their 13 children fled for their lives. His fields and his grist mills were laid waste. For more than a year, he lived in forests and caves, returning home after the war to find his wife dead, his children vanished. A few weeks later, he died from exhaustion and a broken heart. Norris and Livingston suffered similar fates. These were all men that were signers of the Declaration of Independence. 5 signers were captured by the British as traitors and tortured before they died. 12 had their homes ransacked and burned. 2 lost their sons in the Revolutionary Army, and another had 2 sons captured. 9 of the 56 fought and died from wounds or the hardships of the Revolutionary War. Clearly, ladies and gentlemen, in the days and months and years ahead, I pray that we too will possess the courage, just like our forefathers had, and that we also will be able to say that we're willing to pledge our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor for the cause of truth and righteousness and liberty. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. If you have any questions for our speaker, please line up over at this microphone here. And let's give another round of applause, because that was right on target. Thank you very much, Karen Lee.
I just wanted to mention one thing. We have a table back there, and many of you have called and wanted to know if you could get copies of that 149-page report that I just quoted from. They were not ready when I went to get them last night at the printer. So we have a card back there. They're $25. If you want these, if you fill out the card, give the girls back there your 25. I'll eat the shippage on this, the postage, and we'll mail those out to you tomorrow. Also, I want to encourage you to subscribe to the Investigative Reporter. I don't know how much time we have left, but I got to keep doing what I can do here till I can't do it anymore. So if you can support me in this endeavor, I appreciate it. And thank you for your time and patience.
Thank you. Okay. If you have any, does anybody have any questions?
Yeah.
Okay, please go to the microphone. Please go to the microphone.
There's someone there now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, hi. My name is Craig Freeze. Yeah, my name is Craig Freeze.
Craig Free?
Freeze.
Freeze.
Yeah,
We
you're
got
on
a
my-
little ringing in the microphone here.
You were on my TV show one time.
Was I?
Uh-huh. And
Okay.
anyway, you have a newsletter.
Yes.
And your newsletter showed one time Mathers Air Force Base.
Mm-hmm.
And it showed that that base had the wires and the fencing.
Right. What that was were photographs of the SAC base as it was secured back during that time when it was a SAC base, and that's been closed. And those photos were just put in there as an example to show people what a concentration camp might look like.
The base closing commission is with Gorbachev and Cheney,
Mm-hmm.
are two good buddies. Are they still doing this at other
Oh,
Air
yes.
Force
In
bases?
fact, I think it was right before the attack. On the 11th, I remember reading something about more base closings that were going to be going on.
Uh-huh.
So that hasn't stopped to my knowledge.
Are they still building the same way with the wires and concentration camp?
I think that's a pretty good way to keep people in. I know that if you go throughout the country, the bases that I am aware of, many different types of facilities are used. It could be former prisons that are being used. It could be schools. They were even taking the old Tool Lake detention camp area where they actually housed the Japanese during World War II and refurbishing that. So no one facility is the same. You know, they're all different. But you're going to have the security in place. You'll have the inward fences, you know, watchtowers of some sort of variety. But those pictures are kind of a classic example of the different things of security, the concertina wire and different things that you would see.
Elmthorpe, Alaska,
Mm-hmm.
had, during the Eisenhower administration, passed the Alaskan Mental Health Bill.
Yes.
And there's a huge 1 million square foot facility there.
Yes, I've documented all that. Again, I did a 3-part series on concentration camps in America, and that Alaskan base is listed in there as well.
So you have like a list of all the different
The ones that I could personally document, I think my mic sounds like it's going out, and I don't know if it's on or not. But the ones that I could personally document through investigation, I have listed. But I think there are, you know, many, probably hundreds. I wasn't going to list personally any base as a camp unless I could personally document it.
You know, a lot
Okay.
of the facilities where they used to have missiles
Mhm.
in North Dakota, a lot of those have been sold and now they've been closed.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm a Catholic, and there's an apparition called Nisida
Mhm.
that took place in 1950, and it said they're going to use those facilities for dumping the bodies of Christians in. Have you ever seen any evidence of that?
Well, I do know that all those closed military bases are now being used to house foreign troops that are already in this country. Again, I did a report on that. Oh boy, it's either the taking of America or the disarming of America, the report I did back there, back in '96, where I documented the foreign troops that are now in this country. So these so-called closed bases are loaded with foreign military right now. As far as incinerating Christians, well, I guess they'll have to find someplace to put us. So that might as well be, you know, better than any other. Okay?
All right, thanks.
Hi.
Hi.
We really appreciate the work you're doing.
Thank you.
I'd like to add something to what you said earlier about getting to know fellow patriots.
Yes.
It's also getting to know fellow tradesmen patriots and give them work. Try and
Well,
focus
again,
on
that's
giving
why I said
fellow
that
patriots.
the days of being quiet and coming and going need to be over. We need to start connecting. It is my firm belief. I am prepared to give my life for my faith in Jesus Christ as a Christian. And I very well believe that one day I'll get that little knock on the door and somebody will say, I'm sorry, ma'am, you know, you just can't keep writing this anymore. And well, they'll give me the, you know, the quick out of it, which would be nice, or, you know, the camps, I don't know. But I'm saying that this is a decision that each of us has to realize. We have to make this like, hello, you know, is anybody there? This is going to happen. Are you going to be willing to stand? If you say you're going to hide in a cave, it's not going to be any good. There's no safe
you can't
place
go live in the
to
woods.
go.
There isn't enough room for everybody.
That's right.
And
But I
that-
believe that the church, right now, God has his remnant that he's pulled out of the church, and the church may very well have to go underground. How very important it is that we connect with other Christians and begin to pray with each other and support each other.
Well, I remind other Christians that of the concept that they can take your body, but you must give them your soul.
You have that absolutely right. Absolutely
A lot
right.
of people lose sight of that. They get too sucked into the physical thing.
And I'll tell you, ladies and gentlemen, I've been so close to death. I was upset really for a long time. God, why did you let me live? I knew I was going, and I was like, hey, yeah, finally. It's much harder to live than it is to die. You know, it's easy to die. The hard part is living.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
I would like you to please repeat who made that report? You said 149 pages.
Okay.
Who it by and
Let me show
what's in
this
it?
cover again. This ominous-looking cover. This Phase 3 report is called the Roadmap for National Security, and this is by the United States Commission on National Security in the 21st Century. Okay?
Who that report is destined for?
Who is it designed for? Is that what you said?
Who they intended to give it for?
Oh, well, this is the plan that Governor Tom Ridge, who is now ahead of this cabinet position of Homeland Security, this is the blueprint. This is the design. This is what he is going to be implementing, this report that I have just read from.
Thank you.
Okay?
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Paul Farrell. Some years back during his lifetime, John D. Rockefeller I made the following statement. The way to make money is to buy when blood is running in the streets.
Mm-hmm.
And the Rockefeller family have followed that tradition ever since.
Mm-hmm.
So this is their show.
Right? As I said, the globalist bankers. And realize that those men have sold out their souls to Satan. And people need to realize this is a spiritual battle we are in. It is a battle against good and evil. And if you haven't gotten that picture, you're missing the whole picture.
We better start learning how to capture the enemy's weapons.
Well,
and use them
again,
against him.
what you're saying may have some validity down the road, but I'll tell you, this battle isn't going to be fought with guns and bullets. This is a spiritual battle. And it's not going to be fought with guns and bullets. God is calling the people of America to repentance. And unless the people of America turn around and repent for all the abortions, the babies that have been murdered, all the atrocities, the pornography, everything, God has no other choice but to bring his judgment upon this nation.
Okay,
Thank you.
Was there really a plot to blow up the Sears building in Chicago a couple weeks ago, or was that a media number?
I have no information on that at all. I really don't know. I'm always very suspicious about what I hear naturally, just as I know most of us are, what we hear in the media.
They said they caught it in time. and
Yeah, but
prevented it,
you know, there have been so many hoaxes going on. Supposedly, in the middle of all this rubble, they found the passport of one of the terrorists. It wasn't burned, it wasn't torn, they found it in the rubble. Now, supposedly, they found letters that were written by these terrorists. Well, we had a Middle Eastern man, a scholar in language, came in and said that it was a hoax. They find a car with a video on how to fly the plane. Now, come on, get real. You know, I hope he watched the video before he got up there. I mean, you know, do you see, this is bin Laden is equal to Lee Harvey Oswald. Do you notice how quickly, after the assassination of President Kennedy, within 2 hours' time, they had the suspect? Within an hour time, everybody in the world knew that bin Laden did this. This is a setup. And if people can't see through this, this has been brought about by the globalist elite, our shadow government, to bring us into a one world order. And right now, bin Laden is just the modern day version of Lee Harvey Oswald.
And do you believe the 2 deaths of anthrax in Florida and
Again, I
Maryland
don't.
and Virginia are real or just a panic thing?
No, I think they are real. I don't think it's part of a terrorist attack. It may be some sort of a lone nut type of a case, which we have enough of those people walking around. I don't believe that that's a terrorist threat. But you know, it's almost like if you want to know what happened or is going to happen, listen to what the mainline media tells you. The day of the attack, you had Dan Rathers, you had all these guys on TV saying this is war. Immediately, we knew we were going to war. Now all they have been talking about is a biological attack. Well, is that what we're going to get next? They always will tip us off and tell us, you know, what's going to come next.
Isn't it true that the anthrax bacteria is manufactured in the CDC in Atlanta?
Yes.
I was thinking to myself immediately after the attacks on the 11th that, oh, well, now we're probably going to have some outbreaks of anthrax somewhere.
I thought it also very interesting that scientists for the government have unearthed bodies of soldiers and people that died in the 1918 Spanish influenza. If you remember, that went across if you've read about that, millions and millions of people died from that outbreak of flu. Actually, scientists have gone in now and they've looked at the DNA and they say, well, you know, we want to make sure, in case this ever happens again, that we can prevent it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, what they have done is clone the disease, so look for more to come. Yeah.
I've always wondered why every year they tell you go
Ahead of time, what flu you're going to get?
flu shot,
Yeah, isn't that
and
interesting?
they tell you in addition now this next winter Asian flu is going to be the in thing, or the Hong Kong
I wonder
flu,
when the
or
people are ever
African
going to
flu.
catch on
Get
to
your
that.
shot.
I know, I've thought of that. You know, they'd say, well, okay, you know, this year we're going to have the Hong Kong flu, and we've got our how do they know?
How do they get a vaccine
People have never
beforehand?
put that together yet. I know.
My main question is, based on your feeling and understanding of everything, how soon will it be before we have tanks and armor personnel carriers in the streets with checkpoints along the way with jack boots standing there stopping you and saying, "Schnell, schnell, where is your papers?"
Exactly. Yeah. The way I see this playing out, I see an economic crash coming. I see another major terrorist event occurring. At that point in time is when the American people will be willing to surrender their personal rights. I believe somewhere down the line that the hand of government oppression will become so oppressive that you will have people that will start to, a backlash will be formed against the government. You will have gun owners that are going to be unwilling to give in their guns. And you'll see different things occur. We start playing into the scenario of people being picked up, taken to concentration camps, and so forth. I believe we will see a day where we have tanks in the middle of the street and blood of Americans will run in American streets. I'm not a prophet. I'm not a fortune teller. I'm just one lady who digs for the truth. So I can't give you any kind of a timetable, and maybe if I had that timetable, I wouldn't be able to handle it myself. All I know is that I think the events of the 11th have told us that every single day we need to be ready to meet our Maker, because we don't know the last day we're going to have on this earth. And that's why I keep telling people, please, please, get your spiritual house in order now. Get your lives in order. Thank you.
Yeah, I had a question about the terrorists of this September 11th. The media showed a aberration of like a lion, and it was like a demonic type of thing.
I heard
through the
about that. It was
smoke.
supposed to be like a devil in the clouds or
It
something.
looked like a lion. And then Art Bell, he was talking about it. He said he kind of bought into it, that it was maybe a demonic aberration. Do you have a thought on that, or have you done any research?
I really don't, not on that, but I do know that some of the photographs, the videos that I've seen call the events of the 11th in question. I have a photograph that was taken, it appeared on CNN for just a few moments while the two towers were still standing. There was a building to the left of the second tower that exploded, and that ran across the screen at the same time Tom Clancy was talking. I have another series of photographs that appears to be, I say appears because I don't know for sure. Again, these were all seen on primetime TV. What appears to look like a projectile or a missile that went through the top of the tower and came out the other side. I have another photograph of an explosion near the bottom of Tower 2. I have another video of some sort of silver thing in the sky next to the building, whether that was an airplane or what. But I'm saying that there is enough video and photographic documentation to call this into question. However, we know we're never going to see the investigation of these things. We're told that this is what happened and that's the way it is.
Thank you.
Karen, I happened to catch the swearing in of now former Governor Ridge for the Homeland Security the other morning. I think I heard him say something like that we will find something for every American to do to, help us on our security. And did I hear you say something about...
Can you click your heels and say Heil Hitler?
Tonight, didn't you say something about they're going to have some kind of a police certification? Was that for private people?
Anyone who wants to become an officer with the Office of Homeland Security. This is sponsored by the RAND Corporation. Can you say One World Order? You can go and get this training, and you will get a certificate now to be an officer in the Homeland Security Agency.
I wonder what they have in store for the children. Something like shades of Nazi Germany, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, that whole scenario comes to mind, and it's pretty wicked.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Okay.
I just wanted to ask you if you know about the anthrax that's on chemtrails that's on the internet.
Yes, I'm familiar with chemtrails.
Larry Wayne Harris has his entire
Yeah, I'm
manual.
familiar with Larry Wayne Harris, and I also blew the whistle on Larry Wayne Harris back in 1997, so I'm not afraid to do it again. Larry Wayne Harris is a fraud. I had at the time extensive documentation showing such that he was being paid by the FBI for his statements. What he was recommending people to do as far as the anthrax, he was trying to say at that time that it was Iranians or Pakistanis that were bringing this into our country when indeed it was our own government that was doing it. I really don't put any credence. Larry Harris, that's not even his real name. That's an alias that he uses.
I heard that.
So I have no credence and no validity into what he says at all.
Because I know it is on there, and he's telling people to go to the feed store and get tetracycline.
Right, and that will actually damage your body. If you do what he tells you to do, you'll probably be dead before you even get hit with the anthrax. So
No.
I would not recommend anybody following Larry Harris's advice.
Can I give a couple of websites that's very interesting?
Sure, I guess.
Jeff Renz.
Yes,
And if you go
uh-huh.
to headlines, I mean, all the information that you need about everything is on there. And also the winds.
Okay.
That's by Dick Eastman. He has an awful lot of information for right now.
Okay.
And also Sherman Skolnick.
I know Sherman,
Yeah,
and I'll give you about a quarter of what Sherman says is truth.
is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have to go along with you about what you said about the abortions. A big thing has been made out of the building, not that it wasn't tragic, but every
Right.
day in this country, 2/3 as many as died in that building die in a much more excruciating death
That's right.
in abortions every day in this country.
That's right.
And nothing is being said about that.
That's right.
And I see little hope for this country unless people will repent and start praying and get these abortionists out of there and stop the abortions. And we need God's help for that. We all got to pray for that.
Yeah, I agree. You're right. Thank you. Hi, Mary. Maybe we could up the microphone for Mary a little bit. If someone's there to help with the microphone.
Thank you. One of the things that we hear is that the anthrax is spread by spores. And sometimes they call it a virus, sometimes they call it a bacteria. And I know when studying mycology that a lot of the things that are mold, fungus, and things like that are usually spread by spores.
Right.
And I'm wondering, because this originally comes from the ground, if it might be from a fungus or a spore type
Well,
thing.
and anthrax, there is a natural form of anthrax which you can catch, which is very, 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 very rare. And there is the manufactured form. And I just want to tell everybody, I would be very leery when the government tells you that you now need to take your shot against anthrax.
Yeah.
Because now you are actually going to be poisoned. The government will just speed your case along real quickly.
This is one of the things that they were talking about, that
Yeah.
Cipro was one of the things that they did, and that besides Cipro, that, you know, if you had some antifungal things, you
Right.
know, they say that like olive leaf extract and things like that are, I don't know if it's military grade anthrax. That they
I think along with, and I should talk, I mean, I could lose a few pounds here myself, but I'm saying part of our responsibilities is also taking care of our health. And I think we probably all need to focus maybe a little bit more on that as well. But again, I just really want to caution people when they come out, which they will, they'll have us all line up so we get our shots so we don't come down with this terrible anthrax poisoning. Avoid it.
Yeah.
Avoid it like
Well,
the
one
plague.
of the things that in mycology is, and there's antibiotics, which is also a form of mold, you know, like penicillin is a form
Yes.
of mold. But diflucan, azoles, and statin drugs are usually antifungals. So
Well,
that-
people, this is a whole new area. Unfortunately, we don't have a whole lot of time. But it's a whole new avenue of thought, an area of thought that people need to start looking into, just being healthy and taking care of yourself. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
Okay, we got a couple more questions, okay?
I'm back again.
Okay.
I read that there are North Korean commandos operating down in Mexico and running terrorist camps, and I haven't heard one word about that from Bush.
I don't know anything about North Koreans in a terrorist camp, but I will tell you one thing that you're not being told right now. China is already into the picture. China has been arming Muslims in the Middle East with armaments and different things. So what we're seeing, and we're not being told this right now, this literally is the start of World War III. And we're going to see the big players of China and Russia get involved in this somewhere down the line, but this is already going on. And again, I don't have any verification about the North Korean.
I read that in the Spotlight newspaper.
Okay.
I'd also like to mention that garlic is a good antibiotic.
Yeah, it sure is, but you know, you really won't have any friends is the problem. If you don't mind being a loner, garlic's a great way to go, but, you know.
Your health's your biggest capital, that comes first.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. We'll go to the next question.
My daughter told me this afternoon late that her husband, who's a former Army intelligence, that we are to expect some kind of action from the terrorists here within the next 48 hours. Mm-hmm. Has anyone else mentioned that? Or
I have been, thank you for asking this question, because this certainly needs to be addressed. I have received a lot of information that something is supposed to occur this weekend. And I'm sure one of the things that we need to address are rumors. Rumors have been flying like crazy. I won't tell you who, I received a call on the 15th of September on my machine. He said, Karen Lee, you better watch it. They're coming to pick up the Patriots today, honey. Get out of your house while you can. I said, hey, babe, I'm here. Come and get me, okay? I know somebody who said that the attack was supposed to occur yesterday. This person was so paranoid, they actually left the state. The rumors are just incredible. Supposedly, this person, you know, had a source, whatever. When you hear that, I would like everybody to ask the question. When someone comes to tell you they're coming to pick up the Patriots today, or they're going to bomb Disneyland tomorrow, or whatever it be, please ask them, who is your government source on this story?
I think there's a house.
I have sources that are extremely high, okay? And I can't even tell you when that's going to happen. So if these people are getting information that it's going to be bombed tomorrow or this, where are they getting this from? This is rumor and this is conjecture, and what it's going to do is drive us all crazy.
Right.
You point and you ask them point blank, who is your government source on this information?
Good.
And it's usually, well, you know, I got a friend who works at this, whatever. No, that's rumor. And we can't jump, we can't be scared over every little rumor that we hear. We have to keep,
false.
right, we have to keep doing what we're going to do, live our lives every day until the end comes. And again, I think, thank you for bringing that up. Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
My name is Joyce.
Hi.
Are we back to the Y2K? I mean, when this...
Are we back to Y2K? Well, you know, we need to touch on Y2K a minute. All of us got prepared. We read the copy, we got the source information, and nothing happened. Then there were a lot of people that said, okay, this was a big hoax. Several things were accomplished in Y2K. The government was able to electronically wire the world. They received billions of funds, and they were able to build underground bunkers under every major city in the United States. And so they certainly took us, you know, when it came to the supposed things that were going to happen. But I will tell you that I believe God allowed us to go through that whole Y2K scenario is, at least personally speaking, I would have never prepared. I wouldn't have my food, my water, all the things that I have today if it wasn't for the Y2K scare. And I almost think that God allowed that for people to become prepared. Because now, when we are really going to need this, we have it. Because we have been put into the mindset of preparing. So, you know, down the line, if you lose your job or whatever, you know, you may have to go into some of those Y2K supplies.
And the money in the bank would be the same thing if you have money in the bank.
Again, in my September, and I should mention, this report that I've done, and the September issue was all about the economic collapse, and I know you and your husband are subscribers. That's not available on individual issues. When you subscribe to the investigative reporter, that is when you'll get this economic story and what I've talked about tonight. But I went into great detail about how we're going to have major bank failures next year because banks are so heavily funded in derivatives. So again, this is something I believe the smaller independent banks will be more safe. I know Citibank for one, Citicorp Group, all those banks in that chain are going to go bankrupt. Bank of America, Chase, Morgan, those are just a few of the big chains because they're so heavily involved in derivatives. I have encouraged people, they need to contact the corporate office, not your local tellers, and ask them what the credit rating is of their individual bank. If your individual bank has a credit rating of less than a B+, if that was me, I'd be moving my funds into a different bank. Okay?
Thank you. And thank you for having her on Saturday.
And the last question.
Only one question?
Go for it.
Well, a lot of the people that ask questions brought up a few things in my mind. This last lady, when we're talking about banks and financing. Will cash be good to have on hand a little bit?
Again, I would encourage, the way that I have done this, I would encourage people to subscribe to my newsletter, and you will receive this report that I have done on the market collapse, or otherwise you can get the video. It's for sale, $10 back there, market plunge. The way that I phrase everything in there, I tell you what I would do, because by law it is against the law for me to give financial advice because I am not a licensed financial counselor. So I cannot give advice to anybody. I can only tell you what I would do.
Money might inflate a little bit.
Oh, I would tell you that right now the dollar is falling, and eventually the dollar will not be any good.
But for those who have like silver or gold or something like that in coins.
I have made recommendations that if I had assets to protect, I would buy silver, gold, and platinum coins. I would not be in the stock market at all at this point in time. If I had money that I wanted to protect, I would put my money in short-term, not long-term, short-term treasury bills. I would not buy real estate for an investment because year or two from now, any real estate that you own right now, you're going to be able, I would be able to go in there and purchase that real estate for 10 cents on the dollar. Real estate is going to fall that much.
Then the intentions of the, let's say the big boys, are to rape and pillage.
Oh, that's good. Those are good, yeah.
Take what you have and then maybe hunt you down and kill you. I heard a quote to that effect.
Well, I don't know. It sounds gruesome, but...
there was somebody who mentioned China, and that's one of the reasons why I got coming
I mentioned China. That China is already involved in the war, only people aren't aware of it.
China moved some Muslim troops.
Right, that's what I said.
They'll transport them on October.
Yeah.
They're building up. They have Panama Canal leased out. They plan on having 1.2 million people there in the facilities. Of course, they're driving a lot of money from us for the trade we're doing. If everybody buys Chinese goods,
Right.
it's going right back to them for bullets, you know.
Right.
Their Defense Department said that they would be fighting us in the next war.
Yeah, most definitely. As I said, they will be involved eventually.
And that way they would have 200 million men in the Army.
Right.
And now I've heard they have that many now.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that reference in the scriptures. It talks about a 200,000 man army that comes.
Yeah.
in
Yeah,
the
it
book
is
of Revelation.
amazing, prophetic. We live in prophetic times.
And prior to that, then there's a 5-month sort of, it talks about a bottomless pit being opened by a Abaddon. You know what Abaddon? It's a second level of hell.
Mm-hmm.
And the angel opens the pit.
Right, right.
And the
It's
smoke
all
comes
prophetic.
out. Now, if anybody knows this, well, a lot of people don't know what the symbols in the scriptures mean.
Yeah. And I think we really can't go into a whole lot of that. I know it's been a long night for a lot of people, so we may have to leave that for another time.
I want to ask one question here.
Uh-huh.
It talks about locusts coming out, and it describes them just like helicopters.
The plagues, are you talking
Yeah.
about?
This is in the book of Revelation. It talks about helicopters. In a 5-month, it's like it's like the New World Order right at the tail end when they're trying to take over. And there's 5 months where they finished up subduing everybody. And you don't, do you think you have any time sequence about when?
Again, I'm just going to be really,
At all?
I have no time sequence. I can only tell you that our time is very short. And again, the most important thing that I could have, or I have given you tonight, is if people in this room do not have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ, they need to explore that possibility. Because if you have put your faith, your hope, and trust in anything but the rock of the Lord, you will not make it through this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Karen Lee. Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight. There will be audio tapes available of tonight's program. And if you could all help us pick up the chairs and put back the tables, we'd really appreciate it. Please listen to the show Saturday nights, 10 p.m., not this Saturday night, on AM 870 KRLA. And join us for the next Granada Forum the first Thursday of November, and the next Republic Forum the second Thursday of November. Thank you, everyone, and God bless you.